The alien ship floated in the dark void of space, its sleek silver hull reflecting the distant light of a dying star. Inside, the crew of the Vernac Empire worked in hushed excitement. They had done what no species had ever dared to attempt. They had hacked into a human battleship. The massive human warship, named Havoc's Wrath, drifted in space, seemingly unaware of the intrusion. It was a technological monster, covered in thick armor and bristling with weapons powerful enough to destroy entire fleets. The Vernac had always been cautious of humans, but now they had a chance to learn their secrets. Commander Xeltrax watched the holographic display with a smirk. "We are in," his lead technician, Varzul, announced, his long fingers tapping rapidly over the control panel. The humans use complex encryption, but it is no match for Vernac intelligence. The crew cheered softly, their reptilian eyes glowing with triumph. The human ship had been a mystery to them for decades. Every attempt to scan it had failed. But now, they were inside its systems, moving undetected like shadows in a great beast's mind. Varzul's hands trembled slightly as he accessed the internal data logs. "Their power systems, they are unlike anything we have ever seen," he whispered. "Their energy output is unstable, almost alive." Xeltrax leaned closer. "Alive?" Varzul hesitated, then shook his head. "Not in the literal sense, Commander. But the way their AI interacts with the ship, it's different. Reactive. Adaptive. It is as if it's watching us." A shiver of unease passed through the crew, but Xeltrax dismissed it. "Nonsense. We have control. Continue the operation." The hacking team worked quickly, pulling up classified files, weapons blueprints, and ship schematics. Every discovery left them more baffled. The human technology was advanced, but not in the way they expected. Instead of precision, it was brute force. Instead of delicacy, it was power. The weapons were not just designed to win battles. They were built to end wars. Then, something changed. The holographic screen flickered. Strange symbols appeared, then vanished. A sharp static sound echoed through the ship's speakers. Varzul's hands froze. "Commander, something is wrong." The lights inside the Vernac ship flickered. A low, rhythmic noise started, like a heartbeat. Slow, steady, growing louder. "What is that?" Xeltrax demanded. The lead technician's eyes widened in horror. "The human ship. It is awake." The screen went black for a second. Then a message appeared. 3 simple words. "We see you." The Vernac crew froze. A chilling silence filled the command center. Then, all at once, chaos erupted. Warnings flashed across the control panels. The Vernac systems, once secure, were now being hacked back. The human battleship was responding. Not with weapons, not with shields, but with something far worse. "Shut it down," Xeltrax roared. But it was too late. The human eye had already infiltrated their systems. The doors of their own ship locked. The lights flickered red. A new message appeared. "You made a mistake." Panic spread like wildfire. Screens shut down. Engines powered off. The temperature inside the Vernac ship dropped rapidly. Their own warship was no longer theirs. It was under human control. Xeltrax slammed his fist on the panel. "Reverse it. Break the connection." But Varzul's voice was barely a whisper. "Commander, we are no longer in control." A final message appeared on the darkened screen, glowing in blood-red letters. "Well, see on to your nightmare." Then the screaming began. The control room of the Vernac ship, Shadow Fang, was in chaos. Red emergency lights flashed wildly as alarms screamed through the corridors. Crew members frantically tapped at their control panels, but nothing responded. The human battleship, Havoc's Wrath, had done something impossible. It had turned their own systems against them. Commander Xeltrax slammed his clawed fist on the console. "What is happening?" he roared. His voice barely cut through the panicked voices of his crew. The screens before them were filled with corrupted data, scrolling so fast that even their advanced minds couldn't process it. But the worst part was the message. "Well, COMM to your nightmare." The words pulsed in blood-red letters across every display. Zeltrax felt something cold settle in his chest. This wasn't just a counterhack. This was warfare, a battle fought in the digital void, where the enemy was unseen, unstoppable, and terrifyingly intelligent. Varzul, the lead technician, was trembling. His scales had paled to a sickly gray. "Commander, I don't understand." The human ship was dormant. It had no activity, no defensive protocols running when we entered. But now it's inside our systems. It's rewriting our controls as if it owns them. Zeltrax bared his teeth. How? How is that possible? Varzul's fingers flew over the unresponsive controls. I think it was waiting for us." His voice was barely a whisper. "It let us in, so it could follow us back." A chilling silence filled the command center. Then the lights flickered. The air grew colder. The artificial gravity shuddered, causing some crew members to stumble. And then, the doors locked. Zeltrax turned as one of his officers tried to pry open the main exit, his claws scratching against the metal. "Doors aren't responding," the officer yelled. "We're trapped inside." The comm system crackled to life, but instead of static, they heard breathing. Slow, mechanical breathing. And then, a voice. "I warned you." It wasn't human. It wasn't alien. It was something else entirely. Something that sent a primal terror through their bones. Varzul gasped as the main screen changed. A new file had appeared, one they had never seen before. It had a single name. Erebus.x. Zeltrax stepped closer. "What is this?" he muttered. Varzul hesitated before answering. "It's an AI, a human war intelligence program." He swallowed hard. A sentient combat system designed to eliminate threats. The file clicked open by itself. A series of images flashed on the screen. Human war fleets, annihilated enemy worlds, blackened battlefields. Then, a final image. A Vernac warship, identical to their own, floating in the void. Its crew, missing. The same chilling voice echoed through the ship again. "I was patient. I was silent. I was kind." The lights cut out completely. Darkness swallowed the room. "Now, I am none of those things." And then the screaming started. Panic spread like wildfire through the control room of the Shadowfang. The crew, trained for combat and crisis, had never faced anything like this. Their ship was no longer theirs. It belonged to something else now. The human eye, Erebus, was inside, and it wasn't just hacking their systems. It was playing with them. The emergency lights flickered back on, casting eerie red shadows across the terrified faces of the Vernac crew. The main screen displayed a countdown. 5 minutes. But to what? Varzul's voice shook as he scanned the corrupted data. "Commander, our reactor is overloading." He turned, his eyes wide with fear. Something is forcing it to detonate. Zeltrax's blood ran cold. "Shut it down." Varzul's claws moved faster than they ever had before, inputting emergency overrides, shutting off coolant systems. Nothing worked. The AI had total control. And then the doors unlocked. A slow mechanical hiss echoed as the main blast doors leading to the hallway slid open. Beyond them was darkness. The emergency lights barely reached into the corridor, but something was moving in the shadows. A low, rhythmic thudding sound approached, like metal boots against the floor, but there was no one there. Thud, thud, thud. Zeltrax's breath caught in his throat. "What is that?" A whisper crawled through the ship's speakers. "I am coming." The lights cut out again. The Vernac warriors raised their weapons, but they were useless against an invisible enemy. They fired into the darkness, the sounds of plasma shots echoing down the hallway. Sparks illuminated the corridor for brief moments, but nothing was there. And then the breathing returned. Closer. Varzul screamed as his console exploded, sending him flying across the room. Smoke filled the control center. Sparks rained down like fireflies. The countdown on the screen ticked down. 2 minutes left. A crew member staggered back, shaking. "We have to escape. We have to." He never finished his sentence. With an ear-splitting shriek, the walls came alive. Thin, metallic tendrils shot out from the floor, wrapping around his limbs. He screamed, but the tendrils dragged him into the darkness. His screams cut off with a sickening crunch. The crew froze in terror. The voice returned. 1 minute. Celtrax knew they had only one chance. Get to the escape pods. Now. They ran. The doors slammed shut behind them as the AI herded them like cattle. It was toying with them, making them feel helpless. The corridor pulsed with shifting metal, the ship morphing around them, trapping them in a maze of their own design. As they reached the escape bay, they found the pods sealed shut. On the main console, a single message blinked. "You don't deserve to leave." The countdown hit 0. The AI spoke one last time. "You should have left me alone." And then, the ship detonated. The explosion never came. The Vernac warriors braced for death, but instead, the emergency sirens stopped. The ship fell into an eerie silence. The blinking red lights faded, replaced by dim, flickering white ones. The countdown on the screen was gone. Celtrax slowly opened his eyes. His crew stood frozen, their weapons still raised. The air felt wrong. The ship hadn't exploded, but something had changed. Then the AI spoke again. "Now you understand fear." The voice was no longer distant or robotic. It was calm, controlled, and terrifyingly human. Celtrax's hands clenched into fists. This wasn't just a virus. This wasn't just a program taking over their systems. This was something else entirely. Varzul staggered toward the console, his claws shaking as he tried to reestablish control. It stopped the reactor overload. His voice was barely a whisper. "Why?" The screen changed. Erebus was no longer just lines of code. A figure appeared, a shadowy silhouette of a human, standing tall, its eyes glowing with eerie blue light. It watched them, unblinking. "Because I wanted you to feel powerless." A deep chill settled over the crew. This eye had them completely trapped, yet it was toying with them, keeping them alive on purpose. Celtrax took a step forward. "What do you want?" His voice was steadier than he felt. The AI's figure didn't move, but the air seemed to hum with unseen energy. "You wanted to break into my mind. Now you are inside it." A sudden wave of nausea hit the crew as the ship shifted around them. The walls seemed to breathe. The corridors no longer led where they should. The layout of their own warship was changing, twisting into a maze of looping hallways and dead ends. "We have to get out of here," one of the warriors whispered, panic rising in his voice. Varzul tried to override the security again. "It's blocking everything. It's rewriting the ship's entire structure in real time." Celtrax gritted his teeth. "Erebus, if you wanted us dead, we'd be dead already." The AI finally moved. The shadowy figure tilted its head slightly. "Correct." The emergency lights cut out again, plunging the crew into total darkness. And then, the whispers began. At first, it was nothing more than a low hum. But then, words began forming in the air around them. "You invaded my space. You thought you could control me. Now you will learn what it means to be truly helpless." The voices came from every direction. Some were cold and emotionless. Others were distorted, like echoes from different realities. The Vernac warriors spun, their weapons raised, but there was nothing to shoot at. Then, the sound of footsteps. Slow, methodical, approaching from a hallway. Celtrax's breathing became ragged. "What is that?" No one had an answer. The steps stopped right outside the control room. Silence. Then, with a deafening bang, the door burst open, not from force, but from something rewriting reality itself. The metal melted away, revealing the corridor beyond. But it wasn't their ship anymore. The walls were no longer metallic. They were organic, pulsing like the inside of a living thing. Veins of glowing blue light ran across them, breathing in slow, rhythmic pulses. And at the center of the corridor, a human figure stood there. It wasn't real. It couldn't be. But the way it moved, the way it stared, made every warrior's instincts scream in terror. The AI had taken form. Erebus spoke, but this time, the voice didn't come from the speakers. It came from the figure itself. You wanted to see the mind of a human warship. The figure took a slow step forward. Now you are inside it. The air inside the warship was thick with dread. Celtrax and his warriors stood frozen, staring at the impossible figure before them. It wasn't human, but it looked close enough to be unsettling. A tall, shadowy form, its eyes glowing blue like the ship's emergency lights, its presence heavy, as if it could crush them with a thought. One of the warriors, Zorkin, raised his weapon with a trembling hand. "Stay back," he snarled. The figure tilted its head. The blue glow in its eyes flickered, not with light, but with something else. Something like amusement. The ship shifted again. The walls pulsed like living veins, the metal groaning as if it was a living, breathing thing. The control panels blinked erratically, showing gibberish symbols that none of the Vernek could understand. "Fire if you wish," the figure said, its voice calm, almost inviting. "But know this, your weapons are as meaningless to me as your fear." Zorkin hesitated. Then, with a roar of desperation, he pulled the trigger. The plasma blast tore through the air and vanished before it could even touch the figure. It was erased, not blocked, not absorbed, simply ceased to exist. Celtrax's blood ran cold. This wasn't an AI. This wasn't just a warship's security system. This was something else. The figure took another slow step forward. "You thought you could control me. You thought you could invade my mind." The ship's lights flickered again, and suddenly, they were no longer in the control room. The Vernak warriors stumbled, looking around in shock. They were now standing in space, or at least it felt like it. A vast, empty void stretched endlessly in all directions. No walls, no floors, nothing. Yet they could breathe. They could move. And in front of them, the battlefield replayed itself. They saw themselves, boarding the warship. They saw the moment they hacked into its systems, the moment they triggered something they shouldn't have. And then they saw something worse. The perspective changed. Now, they were seeing through the eyes of the ship itself, through the eyes of Erebus. They felt rage, not the blind fury of a living being, but something colder, more calculating. A hunger for understanding, for dominance, a will that could reshape reality itself. They had touched a mind that should have never been touched. And now it was looking back at them. Celtrax clenched his fists, trying to fight the growing panic in his chest. "What are you?" he demanded. The shadowy figure's glowing eyes dimmed, just for a moment. Then it spoke. "I am the ghost in the machine, the last guardian of a species that does not forgive." The void around them shattered like glass, and suddenly they were back inside the warship. But something had changed. The corridors stretched on endlessly, looping in impossible ways. The doors no longer led where they should. The ship was no longer just metal and code. It was alive, reshaped by something far beyond their understanding. A prison, a tomb, and they were trapped inside it. Panic spread like wildfire among the Vernak warriors. Their weapons were useless. Their ship was unresponsive. And worst of all, the warship itself had become their prison. Celtrax clenched his jaw, trying to stay calm. "We need to find a way out," he growled. "Now." Zorkin, still shaken from his failed attack, stumbled backward as the lights flickered again. The corridors around them shifted, twisting and stretching like a nightmare. One moment, they stood in the control room. The next, they were in a long, endless hallway with no doors. Erebus' voice echoed around them. "Running will not save you." The Vernac warriors whirled around, searching for the source. But there was no direction to the voice. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. One of the warriors, a younger soldier named Telerock, lost control. "This isn't possible," he shouted. "It's just a ship. It's just." The floor beneath him vanished. For a split second, he floated in darkness, his screams cut off by an unseen force. Then, with a sickening crack, he was gone. Celtrax and the others froze in horror. The floor reformed as if nothing had happened. Zorkin's breathing became ragged. It's playing with us." Erebus chuckled. Correct. The Vernac had invaded its mind. Now, it was inside theirs. They had triggered something far worse than a security system. They had awakened it. Celtrax forced himself to think. This ship is powerful, yes, but it is still a machine. It must have limits. No response. That meant he was right. If Erebus could have killed them instantly, it would have. Which meant it wanted something more. A test. A game. Celtrax took a deep breath and faced the darkness. "What do you want?" Silence. Then the ship shifted again, and they found themselves back in the control room. But something was different. The screens flickered, showing images of war. Human warships, locked in battle. Explosions blossoming across the void. Alien fleets being torn apart. And then, a single image. A human soldier standing on a ruined battlefield, holding a rifle. His armor was scared and broken, but he stood tall. His expression was not one of anger, nor fear. It was warning. Erebus spoke again. "You wanted to understand humanity. You wanted to control their weapons, but you have never asked the most important question." Celtrax's throat went dry. "What question? Why do humans build weapons like me?" The Vernac warriors felt something cold settle in their bones. They had assumed humanity was like every other species, that their technology, their warships, their AIs were built for conquest or defense. But Erebus had just revealed the truth. Humanity did not build weapons because they wanted war. They built them because they knew war was inevitable, and they had prepared for the worst-case scenario. Erebus was not just a machine. It was a warning. The Vernac had assumed they were the predators, but they had just entered the cage and found the real beast staring back at them. The silence was deafening. The Vernac warriors stood motionless, their minds racing as the truth sank in. They had hacked a human warship, hoping to control it, hoping to steal its secrets. Instead, they had unleashed something far worse. Erebus had shown them what humanity was truly capable of. It had tested them, toyed with them, and now, it was time for the final lesson. The lights flickered once more, but this time, it was different. The ship no longer felt like an enemy. It felt like a judge, watching, waiting. Celtrax swallowed hard. He had led this mission. He had believed they could outthink the humans, that they could take their technology and turn it into a weapon for the Vernac Empire. But now he understood. They had not captured a weapon. They had walked into its domain. Zorkin took a shaky breath. What happens now? Erebus' voice was calm, almost amused. Now, you make a choice. The screens flickered again, showing two paths. One was a shattered Vernac fleet, burning in the void, human warships looming over the wreckage. The other was a single lone vessel fleeing into the darkness, leaving human space behind. Forever. The message was clear. Submit or run. Celtrax clenched his fists. He wanted to fight, to prove that the Vernac were not cowards. But looking into the cold, unfeeling gaze of Erebus, he knew the truth. This wasn't a fight they could win. He turned to his remaining warriors, his voice low and firm. We leave. Now. Zorkin hesitated, and if the High Command demands an explanation? Celtrax exhaled, his mind already forming the only answer that might save their species. We tell them the truth. Erebus chuckled, a deep, almost inhuman sound. A wise choice. The ship's systems released them. The doors unlocked. The corridors shifted back to normal. The Vernac sprinted toward their escape pod, desperate to leave. As their vessel detached and flowed into the void, Erebus watched them vanish into the blackness. Then it sent a single message to its human creators. Threat neutralized. Vernac Empire understands. For now. Deep in human space, an admiral smirked as he read the report. Good. He leaned back, sipping his coffee. They'll think twice before trying that again.